Oh yeah, musical routine. There you go.
Start. So there was a horse. And he was a bit of a character. He was in a farm. And he was like, you know what, I'm done sitting here. He's like, I need to start a life. I need to do stuff. I'm just a horse sitting in a barn. And so he's like, you know what? Sorry, I gotta crank out the solo real quick. A little quieter. And so he's like, I need to start my life. I need to do something. He's like, I should learn how to play the guitar. He's like, you know how cool that would be? A horse that can play the guitar? Oh my gosh, that's insane. And so he was like, he calls up Guitar Center and he's like, nay, I need to learn how to play the guitar. They're like, all right, we'll teach you how to play the guitar. And he's like, we can teach anyone. And so the horse is like, all right, cool, when do you want me? They're like, now. Takes him a couple of weeks. But he learns how to play the guitar. This horse learned how to play the guitar. And so he's sitting in the barn and he's just going crazy. Sitting there. And the farmer walks in and she's like, yo, what's this guy doing in here? And the horse is like, I'm cranking out a tune on my guitar. I learned. And she's like, really? And the sheep next door is like, that's pretty sick. That's pretty cool. And the sheep is like, where'd you learn how to do that? And the horse is like, I learned it from a Guitar Center. And so the sheep is like, all right, well, I'm gonna sign up and hopefully play the bass with you. And the horse is like, all right, we can start a band. And so he calls up Guitar Center and is like, bah, I wanna start playing the bass. And they're like, all right, we can teach anyone. What are you? A sheep, if you couldn't tell by my bass. And so they were like, all right, well, we'll teach you. They'll take a couple of weeks. So then a couple of weeks later, the farmer's like, what is that racket? Turns out that it was actually the sheep and the horse playing a tune together in the barn. They were going crazy. They were playing this song, actually. In fact, I was the piano player for them for a while before I retired. However, they were going crazy. You know, the bass guitar and the guitar. It was a very peaceful moment as they were playing this piano song. And so they thought, well, you know what? We are sounding so good. We need to get another person. I mean, we need some rhythm in our group. And so the chicken was like, hey, I need to learn how to play the drums. Because that'd be so cool. A chicken who can play the drums, I could be the original chicken drumstick. And he's like, I'm gonna do this. And so he calls up Guitar Center to learn how to play the drums. I mean, this guy's crazy, but Guitar Center's like, you know what? I know we specialize in guitars, but we can teach you anything. And so they go in, and that chicken's just like, I want to learn how to play the drums. I want to learn how to play them. And they're like, all right, cool, we'll do that. And so they teach them. 3 weeks later, these three actually, the farmer's just like, oh, what's that? Oh, that racket again. Is it the sheep and the horse? And she walks in and there's a freaking chicken on a drum set. And she's like, what? these guys are going crazy. And she's like, you guys need to start a band. And they're like, what an inspirational thought. We will definitely do that. And so here comes the time. And so, after that inspirational message from the farmer, the chicken and the sheep and the horse, the most famous animal band on the planet, they go around the world. I mean, you're talking like Paris. I mean, have you ever seen animals play instruments in Paris? Probably not. Russia? Probably not. I mean, they even went to the South Americas. Like, they were there for a while. And so, 50 years time, you know, and they're like, dudes, we're getting old. I mean, that horse, he's 100 years old. That sheep, he's like 50. And that chicken, he's 12, but that's like 1,000 in chicken years. And so, they're like, trying to figure out what they want to do because they're like, they want to do their last performance, you know? I mean, it's a big time for a band, you know, to close out like that. That's a big moment. And so they decide to do where it all started, the barn. So they all go back to the barn. This music is very peaceful. I like that. And they all go back to the barn, and they're like, "Listen, we need to kick things off right." They're like, "We need a front row seat for all those animals that are still alive who are with us. We need a front row seat for Jenna, the farmer, Jenna McDonald, old McDonald. She was about 100 by this time, and they were just expecting her. And so they were ready. I mean, this was a good time. This was their day, as the song is called, and they were ready. And so they were getting ready to boogie down, but they still noticed the audience had one seat missing. Old MacDonald, Jenna, the farmer, the one who inspired the 3 most talented animals on the planet. And so they were just like, well, I mean, I guess the show must go on. I mean, we're 50 minutes past when we were supposed to start. All these people are waiting. So they go crazy. They do the biggest show they've ever done ever. Fireworks. I mean, explosions. People jumping over buildings. Like, this is just crazy. People are doing crazy things for the most famous concert, and they use pieces from everywhere that they did. Paris, Moscow, Germany, I mean, Canada, South America, wherever, I don't know. They had some very musical pieces from everywhere. And they could play it because they were a chicken, a sheep, and a horse with a dream, thanks to Jenna. The concert ends. Old MacDonald is nowhere to be seen still. And they're like, what do we do? What do we do? I mean, she didn't even show up for the most, like, biggest part of our life. Like, this was our last concert. No one was here. And so they do some researching, and they figure out their producer, he was like, Jenna died. And so they're like, they're really sad. This is not appropriate music. So I'm gonna turn that off because this is a very sombering part. Jenna had passed away. And this was a really sad moment for all the animals because this is what they'd grown up with. I mean, this is who they loved. This is who inspired them to be who they were. And so they're like, I need time to cope with this. I can't do this. And so they were like, you know what, let's just hang out, let's deal with our stresses. But they were like, well, you know what, we need to do one last thing. We need to go to her funeral. And so it was all the way in Europe because apparently that's where she was born. And so they decided they all wanted to go to Europe. There was the chicken, the sheep, and the horse. The chicken and the sheep, they were like, we gotta get over there fast. I mean, we gotta be there for this funeral. And so they get on the plane, and the horse is like, you know, I want to take a more relaxing trip. I'm going to go by boat. I mean, it's going to take him a couple of months, but he's going to get there eventually. And so he lands, finally, after about 6 months of being at sea, going from basically the middle of nowhere in the U.S. to Europe. And he gets there, and his producer's like, hey, horse, I hate to break this to you, but there was a horrible plane crash. Chicken and sheep are dead. And horse is like, what? No, my like inspiration, my friends, everyone that I've worked with, they had families. They lived such a good life. And he's like, I gotta cope with this stress. And the producer's like, well, you gotta go to the funerals. And he's like, I can't even do it. And he hails a taxi with his cloggers of hands. He's like, puts them up in the air, and he's like, I need a taxi in Europe or something. And he goes to a local pub, and, you know, he walks in there, and the bartender looks at me. He's like, why the long face?